Hello and welcome to Dragon Does Gaming. Generally, I do a lot of Let's Plays on on this channel, various games like XCOM and Super Nintendo RPGs, stuff like that. Something a little bit different with the global pandemic going on currently. I have a core group of players that play D&D with me and my family, and we haven't been able to get together, so we've been playing online on Roll20. However, we've decided to kind of record the session and upload it to Roll20, upload it to YouTube, and I just wanted to put out a video of the setting that we play in, a little bit of a recap, and some rules and things that we do a little bit differently than others. And if you see here on the map, this is the map that I created for the setting. It's a custom setting. We've played a previous campaign that lasted it's like between 4 and 5 years. We went from level 1 through 21 using 4th edition, and from that I learned a lot from it and created my own setting from there. We were playing in the Forgotten Realms, but now it's in this customized setting, and thought I would kind of give an overview of it before we upload our first session. So the world that you see here is the world of Alastra. It's actually quite a lot larger. This is just kind of a condensed view of the one area that the party is currently in. The world of Alastra, so it's a custom setting I've developed. I've kind of modeled it after a points of light style, wherein there's safe havens throughout the darkness in the world, and you're trying to connect these points of light together to make the world a safer place. So this history of Alastra, and actually I might actually be able to add in some music here too. One thing that I've been using with this is a lot of the This War of Mine soundtrack, because I think it really suits the mood of the setting. The world of Alastra is one of chaos and despair. Nearly 1,000 years ago, the world fell into war as the god of chaos marched his armies across the lands, ravaging many of the nations of the world. The people of the world turned to their gods, and they responded in full force, sending armies and even coming to meet him head on, but he was ready. Demons and aberrations rose from the depths of the abyss to battle the gods' forces, and for the next century, war ravaged the lands. As kingdoms and nations fell to chaos, the longer the war went on, the more people of the lands lost their faith in the gods to protect them, and eventually the war would end. Not knowing if all the gods had died, perishing on the battlefields, or if they retreated back to their own domains, they've not been heard of or felt since. For the next 800 years, chaos roamed the lands of Alastra, transforming it from the once beautiful land to one full of ruins and barren landscapes. And the darkness never seems to go away. In time, each nation fell. Once civilized populations now gave into the carnal pleasures, becoming raiders and bandits, pillaging and plundering for themselves. Whether it was through war amongst themselves, assassinations, or turmoil, in time, there were no more kingdoms, only small towns, villages, or outposts. Those who could stuck together to try to fend off the darkness, but most couldn't. But in the midst of this darkness, a small light shimmers. After every nation fell and the darkness spread across the lands. Centuries later, an idea was formed, one of hope, to take back the lands from the darkness, and it was here where the City of Light, Bastion, was born. And actually, head on over to the Bastion city map. Bastion, humanity's last hope. It's not just another city in the world. To most, it's the only city. The road to Bastion is a long one, dirty, winding, and dangerous. When you see in the distance the tall, sturdy stone walls, you realize it's why it's called Bastion. With large braziers brightly lit along the walls, you can't be more than helped to wander towards the light like moth to flame. The lanterns provide two distinct features to show travelers who are weak and weary that there's hope ahead, and secondly, that evil and darkness is not welcome here. The city was built alongside the moonlit river as it crests. A large stone bridge leads to the gatehouse tower, which stands tall, towering over anything else that you've seen in this area. The gates are opened as you pass through, and above you is a large portcullis that is ready to be dropped at a moment's notice. Throughout the gatehouse, you notice arrow slits as well. Once through the gates, the first thing you see is the state of the houses here. Most are stone buildings that have seen better days. There's carpenters and masons, scaffolding, and building supplies strewn about the town, either adding to the structures or repairing it, as it looks like Bastion is always in a constant state of construction. The plaza has many tents and makeshift stands in it, and there's a large well in the middle with a monument and shrine next to it. The north of the town is Aldis's Adventuring Hall. The Lion's Den, as it's known. One of the largest buildings here. It's a stone building with wooden accents. Adorned to the front is a golden lion statue with a sign hanging off it indicating the guild. The large wooden doors have intricate carvings of lions on them. As you enter through, you're greeted by the aroma of smoke from the Great Hall's fireplace. The Great Hall opens to a few smaller hallways and rooms, and it's here where you first meet the guild members, or in this case, the cast members. Clad in his white robes, the pale-skinned psionic being known as Meriden the Ellen Scion is played by my brother-in-law Kyle. In his dark, rough leather armor, standing tall with his daggers always close by, is the young male Griffith, the human rogue, played by Griff. Tall, red-skinned, with his heavy scale armor, wielding a large spear, is Varen, the tiefling Ardent, played by Jim. The young master Ramsay Walton III, monocle on his eye, crossbow in his hand, is the human alchemist, played by Cam. A former soldier of the Bastion standing army, ready for adventure and exploring, is Hale, the human sword mage, played by Rob. And the dark-skinned elf from afar, searching for herself, is Tazraya, the dark elf monk, played by Chelsea, my wife. So with that, I wanted to give you guys a indication of where we're at in the story so far. Currently, the party is level 2, so this is something that we started in the last year. We had to take an extended break as one of our members had a baby in that time, so we took a big extended break in there and recently got back together just before this global pandemic started. So with that, to kind of give everyone an insight on where we are, the party first met up as new members of Bastion's only adventuring guild, the Lion's Den, run by Aldis. After some brief introductions, the party was thrown into their first task, which was to travel along the old King's Road all the way to an old abandoned watchtower, or, well, used to be abandoned, to clear it out of a goblin presence. along their way to the tower, they were ambushed by a small band of bandits that they were easily dispatched, thus proving that the guild members could actually handle some unexpected threats. They were able to get to the lower tower and infiltrate it very, very stealthily by blowing open the front door and charging their way through. Took them a little bit of time, but by the end of the night, they had taken the tower and were able to stay there for the night. They had then gone back to Bastion, and along the way back, they found an interesting trail that led off to the south. And they were greeted by a small little house in the side of the hill that was very well camouflaged, and they met a family of halflings. They were then able to get back to Bastion, and their next task that Aldous had given them was to the north of the city. There were lizard folk that moved in, taking over basically where some of Bastion's better fishing areas are, so cutting off some of the supplies to the city. As well, along the King's Road, there was an abandoned farmstead that kobolds had moved into, and they weren't acting aggressively, but the lord of the city and Aldous didn't want them to start acting aggressively along the road. So he gave them 2 quests, to deal with the lizards and to deal with the kobolds. The party first decided to focus on the imminent threat of the lizards. They were able to get up there, have a fairly large battle between the lizards. They were creatures that most of the party had never seen before, so it was a interesting tactic where they were hiding in the swamp-like region, in the water. They were going to ambush them, but they missed their opportunity to do that. After which, they moved along the road to the kobolds. And here, they were able to negotiate peacefully with the kobolds and try to figure out what was going on with them, the issues that they were having, and they found that goblins had stolen an artifact from them, an orb of dragon kind, which basically let the kobolds live with a dragon without upsetting it too much. So it's a orb of lesser of an annoyance, basically, for the kobolds. So they agreed to help get this back from the goblins so the kobolds could move back to their cave. With that, they were also sent a scout from the kobolds, Dax, the kobold slinger. And along the way to the goblin cave to the north, they encountered this weird manor, an old dilapidated building. But as they approached it, they started feeling ill and started to feel the effects of the filth fever. It's a disease in this world, and they decided that they couldn't risk looking at that right now, so they instead went to the goblin cave and tried as they could to enter it stealthily, but were unable to. They started a fight right at the entrance of the cave, and it was almost a massacre. There was dozens of goblins, big ones, small ones, hobgoblins, all there. Big fighting occurred, and the party actually had to retreat because of that. There was just too many of them. Griffith had fallen unconscious, and they had to actually pull him out of the cave and try to rest up. And as they thought they got far enough into the forest, away from the goblins actually came out and ambushed them during the night. actually kind of very memorable as they came in for the ambush throughout the night. The Goblin War Chief landed a very heavy strike, a critical, in fact, on a sleeping Hale, as it was hard for him to even get started into the fight because of that. They were able to defeat them, and actually got to the point where they let one of the commanding officers of the goblins go, as the fight was getting very, very even towards the end of it, and a lot of the party was very low on health and surges and powers, and there was still a large hobgoblin there, and they decided that they could negotiate with each other to keep him alive and to go away while the party could go and get the orb. So the party went back into the cave. They were able to gather the orb and bring it back to the kobolds. The kobolds were very grateful for that and moved back to their cave, which is actually not on the map. They haven't found that yet. And then they went back to Bastion, regrouped, and had a few days off after all of that adventuring. And at this point, they were level 2. The next thing that they did was figure out what was going on at this manor over here. Why were things getting diseased, and why did they not feel good going there? And the only thing that they could come back with was it was almost like a cursed place. So they decided to go there after talking with a priest and getting some holy water, going there and try to figure out the mystery of it. The priest had mentioned that if they could report back what they found, they could go and perform rituals there when it wasn't dangerous for the priest to get there. They were able to get to the manor, and we actually spent 3 sessions here. It was a lot more than I thought that they would. But there was a story behind it all, as they first had to do a skill challenge to get to the manor without trying to contract the disease, and only one person actually succeeded that, which was Cam Ramses, the Sir Master Ramsay Walton III. He was able to be the only one that didn't contract filth fever going in, and they found that the manor was overrun by these undead zombies and ghouls. And after some fighting and searching around, they found a diary of what kind of was going on in this area. And it seemed like this family that used to live here, this noble family, one of their son had started going crazy, talking to himself, and they were going to perform an exorcism on him. But before that happened, something else happened, and when they went downstairs, they found this almost like a ritual room, exorcism room as you could call it, and there was a large demon there with this wraith who happened to be the brother, and they were conversing in Supernal. And from that, the party was able to send this demon back to its realm, and then the party was able to, with that, you could feel the weight of this area, this cursed area, dissipate. Dissipate to an extent. It still was there, but it wasn't giving off this filth fever disease-ridden area anymore. And over time, it may return to a more normal, but they were going to talk to the priests to let them know to come to this area, and it's safer now. They were able to bury the bodies of the ghouls who were the family that lived here before, and from there, that's where we will be going into this first session, first recorded session, and we'll meet up with the party then. One other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was the edition that we're playing in, and the reasons why we're using it, as well as a few house rules that we are using. I'm using fourth edition. That's the edition that we used in our last campaign. I've played myself since 3rd, 3.5. I played Pathfinder 4th and 5th. I do enjoy 4th the most, and the party really likes the tactical combat feel of it. It's kind of gives you that board game or war game feel to it, but on a tactical skirmish level, which it's really good for that. But yeah, our last around 5-year campaign, we finished from heroic level and started to get into epic level when we finished that campaign, and so we had a nice arc where we actually finished, had a year or two off, and have come back to it now. Some of the house rules that we use in this edition, for this edition, we basically use mostly everything by the book, or as much to the book as we can. All official sources are welcome, so Dragon Magazine, Dungeon Magazine, anything basically put out by Wizards you can use. I haven't banned anything unless it didn't make sense for the setting. So, for example, none of our players are playing a divine class, because a lot of those pull their powers from the gods, and the gods aren't really around in this setting. So it's not like you can't be trained in religion, know about it, but those classes seemed like they wouldn't have quite the nicest fit into the setting, so we steered away from those. However, in character creation, an area that I wanted to open up was skills, and we had a few people that took advantage of this because it made sense for them, and a few that didn't because they were fine with how it was. Generally, your skills are based off your race and class. Like, wizards are always trained in Arcana, or they have a choice of history, insight, etc. And as nice as that is, that you pick 5 of these select amount of things, I've always thought that was silly. Why couldn't you be a dwarf rogue who dabbled in the arcane arts? So if you were a dwarf rogue, you wouldn't have that option of picking Arcana as a skill, but you could have been a really astute student before turning to your roguish ways before that. So I opened up that part, so anyone could pick any skill that they wanted to be trained in, and I think it worked out really well in that regards. It let go of that restriction. You still could only pick the amount that you were allowed to have. So if your race and class combination said you got training in 4 skills, you could still only pick 4 skills. And that's still a way to mitigate what they were going for. So on top of that, we also changed the extended rest rules in 4th edition. Generally, after an extended rest, you get back all your healing surges, health, dailies, etc., and you start the day anew. In this version, we've changed it so that if you're in a safe place, those extended rest rules are still the same. So, for example, if you are in Bastion, at the inn, or at the Adventuring Guild, and you sleep there for the night the next day you're gonna feel good, have all your energy back, all your health, all your surges and all your dailies. However, if you're out in the world, it's a dark, dangerous place. It doesn't feel good to be out there, and the effects of extended rest are halved. So in this case, if you had 10 out of 28 health when you rested, had an extended rest, you would go back up to 24 of 28 health, half of 28. So half of 28 added to your current total. If you had 2 of 8 surges when you rested outside, you would have 6 then. So half of 8 is 4, you add that to the 2, there you go. Nice and easy. And same thing with dailies, with getting those big powers back that drain you when you use them. You get half of those ones back when you rest outside. We are doing a kind of a light hex crawl style campaign where it's going to be more exploration based rather than guided missions. There's lots of places to go and explore. As you kind of see this map, it's like a hex map, and there are little points on almost every single hex that you can go and see and do, and the party could go and see and do, but it costs them time in order to do that, things like that. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I'll be doing that they won't always know, but it gives them ability to travel at slow or normal or fast paces. Fast pace means you're going to get there faster, but you making a lot of noise, creatures can see you. If you're going slow, you have a chance to avoid encounters, things like that, bonuses to your perception checks. Camping is kind of similar in that regard. We actually last ended on the camp screen, and where created kind of these charts for the players where you can either set up, you basically have one thing that you're allowed to do and then you rest, or you rest and then do your thing. So for example, if you're taking watch, you're resting while everyone else is doing all their other things, so that you can be on watch while everyone else rests. So there's like setting up camp, cooking, concealing the camp, hunting and foraging, and then also have a personal choice. In this case, it's kind of a written in whatever you want to do for your person. Mirrodin, as you can see here, is down here on his spot, and his ability to do is he does some research throughout the day, while everyone else is kind of doing stuff around camp and people are resting so they can take watch, so that he can gain advantage onto a check, on a history or a nature check on the next day. So it kind of gives him a little bit of a leg up on some things in that case. And Tazraya's, if she chose to use her special ability, or special personal action, hers was to help lay down traps around the camp in case there are things at night, etc. So everyone has their own unique little flair that they can do when camping. Beyond that, I do things, I'd say, a little bit differently from other DMs, but this is based off of my experience of DMing an entire campaign and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, especially with almost the same core players as we had last time. In fact, everyone that's playing in that last campaign, we only added people to it. Everyone else was playing it. So Griffith and Hale are the 2 new additions into our party, and they hadn't played Dungeons and Dragons before, so this kind of knowing what the party is expecting of you helps a lot in how I run things. I tend to try and let the players run sessions more as I want them to create the storylines and do the cool things that they want to do, again, within reason. And that's what I feel the DM is for. I don't say no to a lot of things unless it doesn't make sense, or if I know that they're just messing around. And you'll see that. There's a lot of that. We tend to have fun. It's not always a super serious game. It's a fun game to play with our friends. I'm sure there's other house rules and things that I haven't covered that you might see in the videos or in the recordings and go, that's not how you're supposed to do that. And it's probably because we modified it slightly. Skill challenges is a big one. Generally in 4th edition you get a set amount of successes and a set amount of failures before, and you have to complete one or the other before the thing either succeeds or fails. A lot of the time I set conditions on the failures. So in this last skill challenge, every time they failed, they had to like going to the manor and finding their way there. The end failure condition, so the first failure, you lost a healing surge, you were starting to lose that vitality because of the disease-ridden area. The second one was losing another one. And the third one was you contracted the filth fever disease. So there's always some stakes to it. However, a lot of the times I do always have success after the skill challenge. So what's the goal of the skill challenge? It's to see how badly you mess up before you succeed at it, is kind of how I look at it. There's always going to be a few failures in there, but there's generally always going to be considered success. And I find that runs with the party a lot better than saying, no, you failed, we're done with this. So, but that's just experience, and how I run them as well will be changing throughout the campaign as well. I did this interesting thing before in my old campaign, which I'll probably bring over to this one when it makes sense to, but I'll touch on that later. And I think that's all. So thank you for coming in and watching this and kind of getting a sense of the world, the recap, and an introduction to the characters. And I hope you enjoy this video and our upcoming session videos as well. Currently, we're playing about every 2 weeks, and we'll be recording it then. When we switch back from Roll20 to live and back in person, whenever we're able to in this pandemic right now. I don't know if we will continue recording. It kind of depends on how the series goes. I would love to, but you never know. Yeah, so again, thank you again for the support. Remember, hit the like button if you did like this and are enjoying seeing this type of thing as well. The schedule for releasing these is approximately the week after we have recorded. So if we're doing our next session, if we're doing every 2 weeks then of recording, then approximately the week after we record, we will I'll upload it to YouTube, etc. So yeah, so thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.